Police dog is rejected by the chief for being old. 3 hours later, he proves he's still a hero. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Boston Police Department's K-9 training yard as Rex bounded through the obstacle course with remarkable precision. At 10 years old, the German Shepherd moved with the confidence of an athlete who knew every inch of his terrain. Detective Michael Anderson watched from the sideline, pride swelling in his chest as his partner completed the course in record time. Again. "That's my boy," Michael said, kneeling to ruffle the fur around Rex's neck as the dog trotted over, tongue lolling happily to one side. "Still showing those rookies how it's done." For nearly a decade, Rex and Michael had been inseparable. Together, they'd tracked missing children through blizzards, located crucial evidence in Boston's most challenging cases, and saved countless lives. Rex's keen sense of smell and unfailing loyalty had made him a legend within the department, respected by officers and civilians alike. "Anderson!" The sharp voice cut through the crisp autumn air. Michael turned to see Captain Sarah Mitchell approaching, clipboard in hand, her expression unreadable. "Captain," Michael nodded, standing to greet her while Rex sat dutifully at his side. "Impressive. A run," she said, though her tone suggested she wasn't here to deliver compliments. "But we need to talk. My office, 15 minutes. Michael's stomach tightened as he watched her walk away. Sarah Mitchell had been appointed as captain just 3 months ago, bringing with her a reputation for efficiency and modernization. While most welcomed her fresh perspective, her clinical approach to departmental decisions had left many veteran officers uneasy. "What do you think, boy?" Michael murmured, glancing down at Rex. "Sounds serious." The shepherd tilted his head, those intelligent brown eyes seemingly understanding every word. 15 minutes later, Michael sat across from Captain Mitchell, the door to her office firmly closed. Through the glass wall, he could see Rex waiting, patiently by his desk, occasionally looking toward the office with attentive eyes. "Detective Anderson," Mitchell began, folding her hands on the desk. "I've been reviewing our K-9 unit resources, and some difficult decisions need to be made." Michael's jaw clenched involuntarily. "With all due respect, Captain, if this is about Rex's performance, it's about department efficiency," she interrupted, her voice measured. "Rex has served this department admirably for 10 years, which is well beyond the average service life for police dogs. His recent physical assessment shows a 15% decrease in speed and agility compared to last year." 15%. "On paper, maybe," Michael countered, leaning forward. "But you can't measure experience, instinct, or the bond we've developed. Those things make us more effective, not less." Mitchell sighed, removing her glasses and setting them aside. For a brief moment, her professional facade faltered. "I understand your attachment, Detective, but we have budget constraints and a waiting list of handlers ready for new K-9 partners. Rex's age makes him a liability in high-risk situations." The word hit Michael like a physical blow. Liability? Rex has never... "It's not about what has happened, but what could happen," Mitchell said firmly, her resolve returning. "The decision has been made. Rex will be retired effective next Monday. He'll be transferred to the department's approved adoption facility, where he'll have the opportunity to be placed with a good family." Michael stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You can't just discard him like outdated equipment. He deserves better than some shelter waiting for someone to take pity on him." "It's not a shelter, Detective. It's a specialized facility for retired service animals," Mitchell clarified, her tone cooling. "And I'd advise you to maintain your professionalism. This is a departmental decision, not a personal one. Everything about this job is personal when your partner has 4 legs and has saved your life more times than you can count," Michael replied, his voice tight with emotion. "At least let me adopt him." Mitchell shook her head. "Department policy prohibits handlers from adopting their K-9 partners immediately upon retirement. It's a 6-month separation period to ensure the dog can properly transition to civilian life. She slid a folder across the desk. The details are all here, including visitation protocols during the transition. Michael stared at the folder, but made no move to take it. This isn't right, and you know it. What I know is that I have a responsibility to this department and this community, Mitchell responded. Rex has earned his retirement, and you'll be assigned a new partner, a promising young German shepherd named Ace, who just completed his training. With flying colors. Outside the office, Rex had risen to his feet, sensing his handler's distress even through the glass. His ears were perked forward, body alert and ready to respond to whatever threat Michael might be facing. Michael glanced back at him, then turned to Mitchell with renewed determination. I'm requesting a formal review of this decision. Rex's record speaks for itself, and I'm prepared to prove he's still the best K9 officer in this department. You're welcome to go through the proper channels, Mitchell replied, unmoved. But I strongly suggest you use this time to prepare Rex for the transition. It will be easier on him if you're supportive rather than combative. The dismissal was clear. Michael reluctantly took the folder and left the office, kneeling beside Rex as soon as the door closed behind him. The shepherd immediately pressed against him, offering comfort in the way only a dog could, unconditional and complete. It's okay, boy, Michael whispered, though they both knew it wasn't. We'll figure this out. Across the bullpen, Officer Jenny Rodriguez watched the exchange with concern. Having worked closely with Michael and Rex on several cases, she knew their partnership was something special. She approached cautiously, coffee cup in hand. Everything all right? She asked, though Michael's expression told her it clearly wasn't. Mitchell's forcing Rex into retirement, Michael replied, his hand never leaving the shepherd's fur. Says he's too old, might become a liability. Jenny's eyes widened. That's ridiculous. Rex is sharper than half the detectives in this place. Try telling her that, Michael said, getting to his feet. She's already got his replacement lined up, some young hotshot named Ace. Wow. Jenny shook her head, reaching down to scratch Rex behind the ears. No offense to the new kid, but there's only one Rex. She hesitated, then added, What are you going to do? Michael looked down at his partner, who gazed back with complete trust. Whatever it takes. Rex isn't just some piece of equipment to be replaced when the newer model comes out. He's family, Jenny finished for him. We all know it. Exactly. Michael nodded, a plan already forming in his mind. And you don't abandon family. The remainder of the day passed in a blur as Michael went through the motions of his regular duties, all while making calls and sending emails during every spare moment. By evening, he had contacted everyone from the police union representative to an old law school friend who specialized in service animal regulations. No one offered much hope for an immediate solution, but Michael refused to accept defeat. As they drove home that evening, Rex sat in his customary spot in the specially equipped rear compartment of Michael's SUV, watching the familiar streets of Boston pass by. Michael kept glancing in the rearview mirror, trying to memorize every detail of his partner's alert posture, the way his ears swiveled toward any interesting sound, the absolute focus that had made him an exceptional police dog. They don't understand what they're throwing away, Michael said aloud. Rex's ears perked up at the sound of his voice, those intelligent eyes meeting his in the mirror. But I promise you this, you're not going to end up in some facility waiting for a new family. We'll find a way through this. As they pulled into the driveway of Michael's modest suburban home, neither could have known that events were already in motion that would test their partnership in ways they never imagined, and prove to everyone that some bonds transcend official regulations and bureaucratic decisions. Inside, as Rex settled onto his plush bed in the corner of the living room, Michael made one final call to his former partner, Lieutenant David Martinez, now working with the department's administrative division. Dave, it's Michael. I need a favor, and it's a big one. The weekend passed too quickly for Michael's liking. Each moment with Rex felt weighted with significance. Their morning runs through the neighborhood, the casual games of fetch in the backyard, even the quiet evenings with Rex's head resting on Michael's lap as they watched television. Monday morning arrived with the dull inevitability of a gathering storm. "Last day, buddy," Michael murmured as he clipped Rex's leash to his collar. The shepherd's tail wagged with its usual enthusiasm, unaware that today would be different from any other. Let's make it count. The Boston Police Department headquarters buzzed with its usual Monday morning energy. But Michael noticed the sympathetic glances and hushed conversations that stopped abruptly as he passed with Rex at his side. News had spread quickly, as it always did in a department where gossip moved faster than official memos. "Anderson," Officer Rodriguez called out as they entered the bullpen. She approached with a paper bag in hand. "Brought Rex some of those organic treats from that fancy pet bakery he likes." "Thanks, Jenny," Michael said, genuinely touched by the gesture. "He appreciates it, don't you, boy?" Rex's tail wagged enthusiastically at the familiar scent wafting from the bag. "Is there anything I can do?" she asked, her voice lowered. "The whole unit thinks this is crazy. Rex is practically the mascot around here." Michael shook his head. "I've tried everything. Union rep, department, appeal, even reached out to a lawyer friend. Mitchell's decision is backed by department policy and budget considerations." He paused, scratching Rex behind the ears. "But I'm not giving up. I just need more time." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Lieutenant Garcia, head of the K-9 Training Division. His expression was somber as he approached. "Detective Anderson, it's time. The transport to the retirement facility is scheduled for 10 a.m. Michael checked his watch, just over an hour away. "Can I have some time with him first?" Garcia nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Of course. Use the training yard if you want. It's empty until noon." He hesitated before adding, "For what it's worth, I argued against this decision. Rex is still one of the best we've ever had." "Appreciate that, Lieutenant," Michael replied, his voice tight. The training yard was quiet, autumn leaves skittering across the pavement in the morning breeze. Michael unclipped Rex's leash, allowing him the freedom to explore the familiar space. Instead of bounding off, the shepherd stayed close, sensing his handler's distress. "You always know, don't you?" Michael said, kneeling to meet Rex at eye level. "That's what they don't understand about you. It's not just about how fast you can run or how well you can track. It's this." He gestured between them. "This connection." Rex pressed his muzzle against Michael's hand, his brown eyes never leaving his partner's face. For the 1,000th time, Michael wished the dog could speak, could understand why their partnership was being severed by bureaucratic decision. "Detective Anderson." Captain Mitchell's voice broke the moment. She stood at the entrance to the yard, clipboard in hand. "The transport team has arrived early. They're waiting at the rear entrance." Michael stood, anger flaring. "We were promised until 10. "Plans change," Mitchell replied, though she had the decency to look uncomfortable. "The facility has a tight schedule today with multiple intakes. They need to get on the road." 5 more minutes, Michael insisted. Not a request, but a demand. Mitchell hesitated, then nodded curtly. 5 minutes. I'll tell them to wait." She turned to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, Detective, I understand this is difficult. But sometimes difficult decisions are necessary for the greater good." "The greater good," Michael echoed, the words hollow. "Is that what you tell yourself to sleep at night?" Mitchell's expression hardened. "I don't need to justify my decisions to you, Detective. 5 minutes." She walked away, her heels clicking sharply against the pavement. "The greater good," Michael repeated to Rex once she was gone, "as if replacing you with some rookie dog is going to make this department better." He pulled something from his pocket, Rex's favorite ball, worn with years of use. One more round, buddy. Rex's posture immediately changed, energy coursing through his body as he focused on the ball. Michael threw it across the yard, watching as the shepherd launched into a sprint, a blur of black and tan against the concrete. For a moment, watching, Rex retrieved the ball with the same enthusiasm he'd shown as a young dog. Michael could almost forget what was coming. Almost. The 5 minutes passed too quickly. When Officer Rodriguez appeared at the yard entrance, her expression told Michael everything he needed to know. "They're waiting," she said softly. "I'm sorry, Michael." With a heavy heart, Michael clipped the leash back onto Rex's collar. The walk to the rear entrance felt like the longest of his life. A white van with Boston Animal Retirement Services emblazoned on the side waited, its rear doors open. 2 uniformed handlers stood beside it, their expressions professionally neutral. "Detective Anderson?" one of them asked, stepping forward with a clipboard. "I'm Jason, and this is Tanya. We'll be transporting Rex to the Harborview Retirement Facility today." Michael nodded, not trusting himself to speak. "We have all his records," Jason continued, clearly trying to be reassuring. "And I want you to know, Harborview is a top-notch facility. Indoor-outdoor runs, regular exercise programs, excellent veterinary care. Many of our residents get adopted within a few months." "Residents?" Michael repeated, the corporate euphemism grating on his nerves. "He's not checking into a hotel. He's being forced out of his home, away from his partner." Tanya stepped forward, her expression compassionate. "We understand this is difficult, Detective. The separation period is designed to help service animals transition to civilian life. After 6 months, if he hasn't been adopted, you'll have the first option to take him home. 6 months in a kennel for a dog who spent his entire life working and living with me," Michael said, the injustice of it burning in his chest. "Do you have any idea what that will do to him?" Before either could respond, Captain Mitchell approached, a young officer trailing behind her with a German shepherd puppy on a leash, barely out of adolescence, all gangly limbs and excess energy. "Detective Anderson, this is Officer Cooper and Ace, your new partner," Mitchell said, as if introducing colleagues at a conference. "Ace has just completed his certification with the highest scores in his class." The puppy strained at his leash, eager to investigate Rex, who remained perfectly still at Michael's side, watching the younger dog with dignified restraint. "Captain, with all due respect, this isn't the time," Michael said, his voice low. Mitchell's expression softened fractionally. "I understand this is difficult, Detective, but the department needs to move forward. Officer Cooper has been assigned to work with you for the next 3 weeks as you and Ace establish your partnership." Officer Cooper, who couldn't have been more than 25, shifted uncomfortably. "It's an honor to work with you, Detective Anderson. I've heard amazing things about your work with Rex." Michael nodded stiffly, unable to blame the young officer for a situation not of his making. "Thanks, Cooper. We'll talk later." Turning back to the transport team, Michael knelt beside Rex one last time. "I need a moment." They stepped back respectfully, giving him space. "Listen to me, boy," Michael whispered, his hands gently holding Rex's face. "This isn't goodbye. I'm going to fix this, I promise. Just be patient, okay? Be a good boy for these people. And I'll come for you as soon as I can." Rex whined softly, pressing closer to Michael, as if trying to physically prevent the separation that was about to occur. "I know, buddy, I know." Michael's voice cracked. He removed Rex's working collar, the one with the Boston PD K9 unit badge, and replaced it with a simple blue one he'd brought from home. "This is just temporary." Standing, Michael handed Rex's leash to Jason, the physical act of relinquishing control over his partner nearly unbearable. "He likes to sleep with a blanket, even in warm weather. And he gets anxious during thunderstorms, not scared, just restless. And his left hip sometimes bothers him if he's been too active, so you might notice him favoring it slightly." "Jason," nodded, accepting the leash with appropriate solemnity. "We'll take good care of him, Detective. You have my word." Rex didn't struggle as he was led toward the van, but he kept looking back at Michael, confusion evident in every line of his body. It was only when the doors began to close that he let out a plaintive whine that cut through Michael like a knife. And then the doors were shut, the engine started, and the van pulled away from the precinct. Michael stood motionless, watching until it turned the corner and disappeared from sight. Only then did he realize that Officer Rodriguez had moved to stand beside him, her hand resting supportively on his arm. "This is wrong," she said simply. "Yes," Michael agreed, his voice hollow. "It is." Behind them, Captain Mitchell cleared her throat. "Detective Anderson, I've arranged for you to have the rest of the day off to adjust. Officer Cooper will report to you tomorrow morning to begin ACE's orientation." Michael turned to face her, all pretense of professional deference gone. "You've made a mistake, Captain. Rex isn't just a piece of equipment you can replace when it shows signs of wear. He's a valuable member of this department, and more importantly, he's my partner." "Your emotion is understandable," Mitchell replied, her tone maddeningly reasonable. "But in time, you'll form a new bond with Ace. Many handlers go through multiple K9 partners during their careers." "This isn't about my career," Michael said coldly. "This is about loyalty, something Rex has in abundance, and this department apparently lacks entirely." Without waiting for a response, he walked away, each step feeling leaden. As he drove home that evening, the silence in the SUV was deafening. No rhythmic panting from the back seat, no occasional whine of interest when they passed something intriguing, just emptiness where his partner should be. Michael's phone rang as he pulled into his driveway. Lieutenant Martinez's name flashed. On the screen, "Dave," Michael answered, hope flaring briefly. "Please tell me you have good news." "Not exactly." "Good," Martinez replied, his voice cautious. "But interesting. I've been looking into Mitchell's sudden push for K9 unit modernization, and something doesn't add up. The budget increase she claimed was needed for new dogs? It's going somewhere else entirely." Michael sat up straighter. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying there's more to this story than retirement policies and budget constraints," Martinez said. "And I think you should come to my office tomorrow. There's something you need to see." As Michael ended the call, he looked at the empty space beside him where Rex usually sat during their evening routine. "Hang in there, buddy," he said to the empty air. "This isn't over, not by a long shot." The next morning dawned grey and drizzly, matching Michael's mood perfectly. The house felt eerily silent, without the clicking of Rex's nails on the hardwood floors or his expectant whine at breakfast time. Michael moved through his morning routine mechanically, pausing only when he automatically reached for Rex's food bowl before remembering it wouldn't be needed. At the precinct, he found Lieutenant Martinez waiting in his office, blinds drawn and expression serious. The veteran officer had been with the Boston PD for over 20 years, the last 5 in the administrative division. His salt and pepper hair and perpetually rumpled suits belied a mind as sharp as any detective's. "Close the door," Martinez instructed as Michael entered. Michael complied, settling into the chair across from Martinez's desk. "What's this about, Dave? Your call sounded urgent." Martinez pushed a folder across the desk. "Budget proposals from the last 6 months. Mitchell's been reallocating funds from multiple departments, not just K9, and the official line about budget constraints forcing early retirements. Complete fiction." Michael flipped through the documents, his law enforcement training allowing him to quickly identify the discrepancies Martinez was highlighting. "These numbers don't match what she presented to the department heads." "Exactly," Martinez confirmed, leaning forward. "The K9 unit's budget actually increased by 12% this quarter. So why force experienced dogs into early retirement when you have the money to maintain them alongside new recruits?" Michael's mind raced with possibilities. Could it be personal? Maybe she just doesn't like me or Rex. Martinez shook his head. It's not just Rex. 3 other service dogs have been fast-tracked for retirement in the past month, all experienced, all replaced with new dogs from the same training facility in New Hampshire. Northeast Canine Academy? Michael asked, spotting the name on one of the invoices. That's the one, Martinez confirmed. Opened 18 months ago, and suddenly they're the exclusive supplier for Boston PD's K9 unit. No competitive bidding, no evaluation of other facilities. That's against procurement regulations, Michael pointed out, his detective instincts fully engaged now. It gets better, Martinez said, pulling another document from his desk drawer. Guess who sits on the board of directors for Northeast? K9 Academy. He slid a glossy brochure across the desk, pointing to a name listed among the leadership team. James Mitchell, Michael read aloud, the implications immediately clear. Any relation to our Captain Mitchell? Husband, Martinez. Confirmed. Former military K9 handler, started the academy after retiring from the service. And since his wife took over as captain, their contracts with police departments across New England have tripled. Michael sat back, anger and understanding warring within him. She's forcing out experienced dogs to create openings for her husband's business. That's a clear conflict of interest. At minimum, Martinez agreed, could be grounds for an ethics investigation. But here's where it gets complicated. Mitchell has political connections. Her brother-in-law is Deputy Mayor Williams. So going through official channels might be a dead end, Michael concluded, frustration evident in his voice. Or worse, Martinez warned. Cross the wrong political allies, and you could find yourself transferred to traffic duty in the worst precinct in the city. Michael rubbed his temples, feeling the beginnings of a headache. I appreciate the risk you're taking by showing me this, Dave. Dirt. Rex saved my life during that warehouse standoff in 2015, Martinez said simply. I haven't forgotten. Besides, corruption in the department hurts all of us. A knock at the door interrupted their conversation. Officer Rodriguez peered in, her expression apologetic. Sorry to interrupt, but Officer Cooper's here with Ace. He says you had a training session scheduled. Michael had completely forgotten about his new partner. Tell him I'll be there in 5 minutes. After Rodriguez left, Michael turned back to Martinez. What's our next move? Carefully gather evidence, Martinez advised. I'll keep digging on my end, but we need more than suspicion to challenge someone with Mitchell's connections. Michael nodded, standing to leave. And in the meantime, Rex sits in that facility, waiting. I called a friend who works at Harborview, Martinez said. She says Rex is doing as well as can be expected, keeping to himself, not eating much, but physically fine. A lump formed in Michael's throat at the image of Rex alone and confused in a strange place. Thanks for checking on him. One more. A thing, Martinez added as Michael reached the door. Be careful around Cooper. All the new handlers came with personal recommendations from Mitchell. Could be innocent, but he might be reporting back to her, Michael finished. Got it. Outside, Officer Cooper waited with Ace, the young German shepherd practically vibrating with energy. At the sight of Michael, the dog strained at his leash, eager to investigate the new person. Detective Anderson, Cooper greeted, his enthusiasm almost as boundless as his canine partners. Ace and I are all set for orientation. I've reviewed your past cases with Rex. Truly impressive work. Michael forced a polite smile. Let's start with the basics. Training yard in 10 minutes. The morning passed in a blur of frustration. Ace was clearly intelligent and well-trained, but he lacked the experience and intuition that had made Rex such an exceptional partner. Where Rex would have anticipated Michael's commands, Ace required explicit instructions for every action. Where Rex would have maintained a professional demeanor, Ace was easily distracted, his youthful energy making focus difficult. He'll improve with time, Cooper assured Michael during a break. The trainers at Northeast Academy said he has the highest potential they've seen in years. Michael bit back a skeptical response, instead asking casually, Northeast Academy, huh? They must be doing something right to get so many contracts with the department. Cooper nodded enthusiastically. State-of-the-art facility. Captain Mitchell arranged for all new handlers to tour it last month. They've developed some proprietary training techniques that supposedly reduce training time by 30%. Impressive, Michael commented, careful to keep his tone neutral. Mitchell seems very invested in the K9 program's success. Absolutely, Cooper agreed. She's personally reviewing all the training reports, says she wants to make Boston's K9 unit the model for departments nationwide, or create a showcase for her husband's business, Michael thought but didn't say. By lunchtime, Michael had reached his limit of forced enthusiasm. Let's call it a day, Cooper. You and Ace did well. We'll continue tomorrow. But we've only covered half the orientation checklist, Cooper protested, holding up a detailed schedule that Michael suspected came directly from Mitchell. Sometimes less is more with dog training, Michael replied firmly. Give Ace time to process what he's learned today. Trust me on this. Once Cooper and Ace departed, Michael headed straight to Rodriguez's desk. Jenny, I need a favor. She looked up from her computer. Name it. Can you access the department's procurement records for the past year? I need to know everything about our contracts with Northeast K9 Academy. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. That's oddly specific. Does this have something to do with Rex? Maybe, Michael hedged. Can you do it without raising flags? I have legitimate access for the community outreach budget, she said thoughtfully. I could frame it as research for the school program. We're developing, but it might take a day or two to avoid suspicion. Perfect. And one more thing. Did Mitchell bring any personal files or records when she took over as captain? Rodriguez nodded. Several boxes. They're in the storage room adjacent to her office. Why? Just curious about her management approach, Michael replied casually. Always good to understand the boss's perspective. Rodriguez didn't look convinced, but didn't press further. Be careful, Michael. Mitchell isn't someone you want as an enemy. Too late for that, Michael replied grimly. The afternoon dragged by, filled with paperwork and pretense. Michael made a show of reviewing Ace's training manual while his mind worked through everything Martinez had revealed. If Mitchell was indeed abusing her position to benefit her husband's business, there had to be a paper trail somewhere. As the workday neared its end, Michael found himself drawn to the observation window overlooking the K9 training yard. Cooper was there with Ace, running through basic obedience drills. The young dog was undeniably talented, moving with the fluid grace characteristic of his breed. In another circumstance, Michael might have appreciated the opportunity to work with such a promising animal, but all he could see was Rex navigating the same obstacle course with veteran precision, Rex alerting to hidden evidence with unerring accuracy, Rex standing protectively beside him in countless dangerous situations. Quite the specimen, isn't he? Captain Mitchell's voice startled Michael from his thoughts. She had approached silently, now standing beside him at the window. He's young, Michael replied neutrally. Lots to learn. Youth has its advantages, Mitchell countered. Greater adaptability, faster recovery time, longer service potential. The department's investment in him will pay dividends for years. Michael turned to face her directly. Is that how you see it? As an investment? Something flickered in Mitchell's eyes. Caution, perhaps. Every decision I make is with an eye toward the department's future, Detective. Sentimentality is a luxury we can't afford in public service. And what about loyalty? Michael challenged. Isn't that a value worth investing in? Loyalty to the department and its mission, absolutely, Mitchell replied coolly. Loyalty to routines and outdated practices. That's how organizations stagnate. Michael studied her, searching for any hint of the corruption Martinez had suggested. All he saw was the polished professionalism she always displayed. Change can be difficult, Mitchell continued in a softer tone, but I hope you'll give Ace a fair chance. Officer Cooper reports that today's session was cut short. So Cooper was reporting to her directly. Training dogs isn't about checking boxes on a schedule, Captain. It's about building trust and understanding, which takes time. Time we don't have, Mitchell replied. The department has committed to demonstrating our enhanced K9 capabilities at the Mayor's Public Safety Conference next month. I expect you and Ace to be ready. 6 weeks to prepare a green dog for public demonstration, Michael scoffed. That's unrealistic and you know it. Northeast Academy guarantees their accelerated training program produces results in half the time of traditional methods, Mitchell insisted. Ace is proof of that concept. Convenient that the department has become so reliant on Northeast's guarantees, Michael remarked, watching her reaction carefully. Mitchell's posture stiffened almost imperceptibly. We contract with the best providers available, Detective. Northeast's results speak for themselves. I'm sure they do, Michael agreed, his tone deliberately ambiguous. I just hope we're not sacrificing quality for speed. Before Mitchell could respond, her phone buzzed. She checked the screen, frowning slightly. I have to take this. We'll continue our discussion another time, Detective. I expect your full cooperation with the training schedule moving forward. As she walked away, Michael couldn't help but notice that her usual confident stride seemed slightly hurried. His pointed comments about Northeast had clearly struck a nerve. Later that evening, as Michael walked through his empty house, his phone chimed with a text from Rodriguez. Found something interesting in those procurement records. Northeast contract signed 2 days before official bidding closed. Call me. Michael dialed immediately, his pulse quickening. What exactly did you find? The contract with Northeast was dated June 10th, Rodriguez explained. But the official bid process didn't close until June 12th. 2 other vendors submitted proposals that were never reviewed. That's a clear violation of procurement protocols, Michael said, excitement building. Does the documentation show who authorized it? That's where it gets interesting, Rodriguez replied. The authorization signature isn't Mitchell's. It's Deputy Mayor Williams, her brother-in-law, right? Exactly, Michael confirmed, the pieces falling into place. They're keeping it in the family, making it harder to trace the conflict of interest. There's more, Rodriguez continued. I checked the retirement dates for all K9 officers this year. Every single one was replaced with a dog from Northeast. That can't be coincidence. It's not, Michael agreed. The question is, what do we do with this information? Martinez warned that Mitchell has political protection. Maybe we don't go through official channels, Rodriguez suggested. The Department Oversight Committee is holding public hearings next week on budget allocations. If this information were to find its way to certain committee members, it could force an investigation that even the deputy mayor couldn't quash, Michael finished, hope flaring for the first time since Rex's departure. Jenny, you're brilliant. I'm also putting my job on the line, she reminded him. But for Rex, worth it. As Michael ended the call, his gaze fell on the empty dog bed in the corner of his living room. Hang in there, boy, he murmured. We're going to fix this, all of it. What Michael couldn't know was that at that very moment, events were unfolding at the Harborview retirement facility that would change everything. Rex, unlike the other, retired service dogs who had gradually settled into the routine of the facility, remained on high alert. For 3 days, he had barely touched his food, spending most of his time by the fence of his outdoor run, watching the gate as if expecting Michael to appear at any moment. Still not eating properly, Tanya noted as she checked Rex's largely untouched dinner bowl. Dr. Peterson says we should give him another day before considering appetite stimulants. Jason, her colleague, watched the German Shepherd with concern. I've seen separation anxiety before, but this is different. It's like he knows something's wrong and he's waiting for orders. Detective Anderson said he gets restless during storms, Tanya observed, glancing at the darkening sky outside. Weather report says we're in for a big one tonight. Well, let's make sure he's comfortable at least, Jason replied, entering Rex's enclosure with a fresh blanket. The shepherd acknowledged him with a brief glance, but remained focused on the gate, his posture alert and ready. As night fell, the storm arrived with unexpected intensity. Thunder rolled across the city, and rain lashed against the windows of the facility. Inside the kennel area, most of the dogs had retreated to the indoor portions of their runs, seeking comfort from the elements. All except Rex. He stood in the outdoor section, seemingly impervious to the rain soaking his coat, his attention fixed on something beyond the fence. When lightning flashed, illuminating the yard in stark white light, his ears pricked forward, body tensing. The night security guard, making his hourly rounds, paused at Rex's run. "Hey, buddy, you should come inside. You're getting soaked out." There. Rex didn't move, didn't even acknowledge the guard's presence. Something in the distance had captured his complete attention, a sense, an instinct, a calling that transcended the comfortable safety of the facility. As thunder crashed directly overhead, Rex made his decision. With the precision and focus that had made him a legendary K9 officer, he identified the one vulnerability in his enclosure, a section where the fence met the building, where years of rain had eroded the concrete foundation just enough to create a small gap. A gap that would be too small for most dogs. But Rex wasn't most dogs. With methodical determination, he began to dig, his powerful paws moving with purpose. The storm provided perfect cover, the sound of his efforts lost in the thunderclaps and driving rain. The security guard, having completed his rounds, had returned to the warmth of the monitor room, unaware of the escape in progress. By midnight, as the storm reached its peak over Boston, Rex had created enough space to squeeze through the gap, his wet coat allowing him to slide through the tight opening. Freedom achieved, he paused only briefly, orienting himself in the darkness, before setting off at a steady trot. He had a mission, he had a purpose. Most importantly, he had a partner who needed him. And no retirement facility, no matter how well-intentioned, could stand in the way of that bond. The next morning dawned clear and bright, the storm having swept through Boston, leaving only puddles and scattered debris in its wake. Michael arrived at the precinct earlier than usual, determined to review the procurement documents Rodriguez had mentioned before the day's official business began. He had just settled at his desk when his phone rang. The caller ID displayed, "Harborview Facility." Michael's heart raced as he answered. "Detective Anderson? This is Jason from Harborview. I'm afraid I have some unusual news." Michael gripped the phone tighter. "Is Rex all right?" There was a pause. "Well, that's the thing, Detective. Rex isn't here. Sometime during the storm last night, he managed to escape his enclosure." "Escaped," Michael repeated, a mixture of concern and pride swelling in his chest. "How is that possible? I thought these facilities were designed to be secure." "They are," Jason assured him, sounding both impressed and embarrassed. "We've never had an escape before, but Rex seems to have found a weak point where one of the fences meets the building foundation. The security footage shows him working at it for nearly an hour during the worst of the storm." Despite his worry, Michael couldn't help but smile. Rex had always been exceptionally methodical and determined. "Any idea where he might have gone?" "That's why we called you first, before alerting animal control," Jason explained. "Given his training and your partnership, we thought he might try to find his way to you." "I'll start looking right away," Michael promised, already grabbing his jacket. "And Jason, thank you for calling me first." "He's special, that one," Jason replied. "Not like other retired K9s I've worked with. It's like he never accepted the retirement in the first place." "Michael, ended the call, and immediately dialed Rodriguez. Jenny, Rex escaped the facility during the storm last night. I need to find him before animal control or someone else does. I'm on it, she responded without hesitation. I'll check with patrol units. Ask them to keep an eye out but not to approach him. Just report location. What's your plan? I'm going to drive my usual routes with him. The park where we ran, the neighborhoods we patrolled. He might try to follow familiar scents. What about your training session with Cooper and Ace this morning? Rodriguez asked. Mitchell scheduled it personally. Michael cursed under his breath. Cover for me. Tell Cooper I had a family emergency or something. I can't waste time on training exercises when Rex is out there somewhere. Be careful, Rodriguez cautioned. If Mitchell finds out you're searching for Rex instead of working with Ace, she'll see it as direct insubordination. At this point, I don't care, Michael replied honestly. Rex is my priority. For the next 3 hours, Michael drove through the rain-soaked streets of Boston, scanning sidewalks and parks for any sign of his partner. He called Rex's name in places they had frequented together, hoping the shepherd might hear his voice and come running. But the city remained stubbornly empty of German shepherds matching Rex's description. By mid-morning, Michael's hope began to falter. Boston was a big city with countless places a dog could hide, especially one trained to move stealthily when necessary. What if Rex had been injured during his escape? What if someone had found him and not recognizing him as a police dog without? His official collar had taken him to a shelter. Michael's phone rang again. This time it was Lieutenant Martinez. Dave, I can't talk right now, Michael began. Rex escaped the retirement facility, and I'm trying to... I know, Martinez interrupted. That's why I'm calling. A custodian spotted a German shepherd matching Rex's description near the precinct about 20 minutes ago. Michael's pulse quickened. Near the precinct? Are you sure? Security cameras caught a glimpse of him in the parking structure, Martinez confirmed. He appeared to be looking for an entry point. Michael, he's trying to get back to work. I'm on my way, Michael said, already changing direction toward the precinct. Don't let anyone approach him. He might be confused or defensive after being on his own all night. Already handled, Martinez assured him. I've alerted security to give him space, but keep track of his movements. Michael arrived at the precinct. In record time, pulling into the parking structure with a screech of tires. He killed the engine and stepped out, scanning the dimly lit concrete expanse. Rex! He called, his voice echoing among the parked vehicles. Rex, where are you, boy? For a long moment, silence was his only answer. Then, from the shadows near a support column, came a soft whine. A moment later, Rex emerged, his coat still damp and dirty from his nighttime adventure, but his eyes bright and alert as they fixed on Michael. Rex, Michael breathed, dropping to one knee as the shepherd bounded toward him, all dignity forgotten in the joy of reunion. Rex pressed against him, whining softly, his entire body trembling with relief and excitement. You impossible, amazing dog, Michael murmured, wrapping his arms around his partner. How did you find your way back here? That facility is miles away, Rex responded by licking Michael's face enthusiastically, something he rarely did, except in moments of extreme emotion. Okay, Michael laughed, gently disentangling himself. We need to figure out what to do now. I can't take you back to that facility, but if Mitchell sees you here... As if summoned by the mention of her name, Captain Mitchell's voice cut through the reunion. Detective Anderson, I believe you have some explaining to do. Michael stood slowly, positioning himself slightly in front of Rex. Mitchell approached, flanked by Officer Cooper, who looked uncomfortable, and a facility administrator Michael didn't recognize. Captain, Michael acknowledged, keeping his voice neutral. When you failed to appear for your scheduled training session, I assumed something urgent had come up, Mitchell said coldly. I didn't realize you were attempting to circumvent department policy on retired K-9 officers. I didn't remove Rex from the facility, Michael clarified. He escaped during the storm last night and found his way here on his own. I just arrived. To retrieve him, the facility administrator stepped forward. That's consistent with our security footage, Captain. The dog managed to create an opening in one of our enclosures and left the premises sometime around midnight. Mitchell's expression remained skeptical. And it's merely coincidence that he appeared here just when you were gathering evidence against my K9 unit decisions? Michael stiffened. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult my intelligence, Detective, Mitchell snapped. Officer Cooper reported your unusual questions about Northeast Academy, and Lieutenant Martinez isn't as discreet as he thinks he is while accessing procurement records. Cooper looked away, unable to meet Michael's gaze. So the young officer had been reporting everything to Mitchell after all. If you have concerns about my management decisions, there are proper channels, Mitchell continued. Instead, you've chosen to undermine my authority and disrupt department operations. With respect, Captain, Michael replied, anger bubbling beneath his controlled tone. When those proper channels are compromised by conflicts of interest, alternative approaches become necessary. Mitchell's eyes narrowed dangerously. Choose your next words very carefully, Detective. I know about Northeast Academy's connection to your husband, Michael said bluntly. I know contracts were signed before the bidding process closed. I know experienced K9 officers like Rex are being retired prematurely to create openings for dogs from your husband's facility. For a fraction of a second, Mitchell's composed facade cracked, revealing genuine alarm before she recovered. Those are serious allegations, Detective. Without evidence, they're also potentially slanderous. I have the evidence, Michael countered. Procurement records, contract dates, retirement schedules that mysteriously accelerated after you took command, all pointing to a pattern that benefits Northeast Academy financially while diminishing the effectiveness of our K9 unit. Mitchell stepped closer, lowering her voice. You're playing a dangerous game, Anderson. My brother-in-law, the deputy mayor, yes, I know, Michael interrupted. Perhaps he should be more careful about which contracts he signs without proper review. Before Mitchell could respond, a commotion from the direction of the precinct entrance caught everyone's attention. Officer Rodriguez appeared, running toward them with urgency. Detective Anderson, Captain Mitchell, she called. You need to come inside immediately. There's a situation developing. Mitchell turned, professional instinct overriding the confrontation. What kind of situation, officer? A group of men entered the precinct claiming to be from the fire inspector's office, Rodriguez explained breathlessly. They had badges and paperwork, but something felt off. When I checked with the city office, they confirmed no inspection was scheduled today. Where are these men now? Mitchell demanded. Security tried to stop them for verification, but they pushed past into the main building, Rodriguez reported. They're currently on the second floor, and they've blocked all access points. IT reports that our security system has been compromised. All cameras on that floor have gone dark. Michael and Mitchell exchanged a glance, their personal conflict temporarily set aside in the face of a potential threat to the precinct. Get tactical on standby, Mitchell ordered Cooper, and initiate lockdown protocols for sensitive areas. Already done, Captain, Rodriguez assured her. But there's something else. Before the cameras went down, they were seen entering the evidence storage area, specifically the section containing materials from the Harrington financial fraud case. Michael's mind raced. The Harrington case had been ongoing for months, a complex financial fraud scheme involving several prominent business leaders. The evidence collected represented weeks of careful police work and witness statements that had finally created a solid case against the perpetrators. They're trying to destroy evidence, Michael realized aloud. If those documents disappear, the whole case falls apart. Mitchell nodded grimly. We need to secure that evidence room immediately. She turned to the facility administrator. Sir, I suggest you return to your vehicle for your own safety. This is now an active situation. As the administrator hurried away, Mitchell addressed Michael directly. Detective, given the circumstances, I'm temporarily reinstating Rex to active duty. His skills may be needed, and there's no time to bring in another K9 unit. Michael nodded, all personal animosity set aside in the face of the emerging crisis. He knelt beside Rex, who was already alert and focused, sensing the shift in energy around him. Ready to get back to work, partner? He asked softly. Rex's posture straightened, all traces of his night's adventure forgotten as he shifted into working mode, his eyes fixed on Michael with unwavering attention. I'll take that as a yes, Michael said, standing to face Mitchell. What's the plan, Captain? We need eyes inside before we can move, Mitchell replied, already walking briskly toward the building. The second floor has multiple access points, but if they've disabled the cameras, they'll be watching the stairwells and elevators. There's another way, Michael suggested. The maintenance shaft behind the east stairwell. It's narrow, but it connects to a service corridor that runs the length of the second floor. Mitchell nodded. Good thinking. You and Rex can access through there and give us a head count and positions. Rodriguez, find Lieutenant Thompson from Tactical and have him meet us at the command center. Cooper, locate the building schematics and bring them to us. As the group moved with purpose toward the precinct, the gravity of the situation fully registered with Michael. The men inside weren't just common thieves. They were organized, prepared, and willing to confront an entire police station to achieve their objective. This wasn't a random crime. This was a calculated operation designed to undermine a major case. And standing between them and success was a detective and his recently retired K9 partner, a partnership that, according to official records, no longer existed. Stay close, Michael murmured to Rex as they entered the building, and be careful. I just got you back. I'm not losing you again. Rex pressed against Michael's leg briefly, a silent acknowledgement of the bond that had brought him back to his partner's side against all odds. Then as they approached the command center, where officers were already gathering, his demeanor shifted fully into working mode, focused, alert, and ready for whatever challenges awaited. Little did anyone know that Rex's unauthorized return wasn't just a coincidence or a remarkable feat of K9 loyalty. It was about to become the difference between success and failure in the most intense situation the Boston Police Department had faced in years. The command center buzzed with controlled urgency as officers coordinated their response to the intruders. Lieutenant Thompson, head of the tactical unit, spread the building schematics across the central table where Captain Mitchell and several senior officers had gathered. Based on Officer Rodriguez's report, we have at least 4 intruders on the second floor, Thompson explained, circling key areas on the blueprint. They've disabled the electronic locks on the evidence storage rooms and cut the feeds to all security cameras. What about the emergency protocols? Mitchell asked. The evidence room should have sealed automatically when unauthorized access was detected. That's what's concerning, Thompson replied. Someone knew exactly how to bypass those systems. This isn't random. It's professional and well planned. Michael studied the schematics, Rex sitting alertly at his side. The maintenance shaft. Here, he pointed, will give us access to the service corridor without being detected. Rex and I can get eyes on the situation and report back before you send in tactical. Mitchell nodded, her earlier hostility toward Michael temporarily set aside in the face of the crisis. Do it, but observe only. No engagement unless absolutely necessary. We need information, not heroes. Understood, Michael agreed, checking his service weapon and radio. He glanced down at Rex, who remained focused and ready, despite lacking his official K9 equipment. We could use Rex's tactical vest and communication gear. Already on it, Rodriguez said, entering with a familiar black vest and specialized K9 equipment. I kept these in my locker after Rex left. Just couldn't bring myself to turn them in. Michael shot her a grateful look as he quickly fitted Rex with his working gear. The shepherd stood perfectly still during the process, muscle memory from years of preparation for operations taking over. Once equipped, Rex's demeanor shifted subtly, his posture straightening, his focus sharpening even further. He wasn't just a dog anymore. He was a police officer reporting for duty. "Be careful, both of you," Mitchell said as Michael prepared to leave. "And Anderson, when this is over, we'll need to have a serious conversation about everything that's happened." Michael nodded, knowing that the tenuous truce between them would not last beyond the resolution of the current crisis. But that was a problem for later. Right now, Rex's unexpected return had provided them with exactly the resource they needed to assess the situation safely. The maintenance shaft was as narrow as Michael remembered, a tight vertical climb accessed through a service door in the basement. Rex navigated it with practiced ease, having accompanied Michael on similar routes during previous operations. At the second-floor access point, Michael paused, listening carefully before slowly opening the panel that led to the service corridor. The service corridor ran behind the main hallways of the second floor, providing access to electrical panels, HVAC systems, and other infrastructure. It was narrow and dimly lit, but offered a perfect vantage point through small observation ports designed for maintenance workers to check conditions without disrupting office activities. Michael and Rex moved silently along the corridor, stopping at each observation port to assess what was happening in the main areas of the floor. The first two ports revealed empty hallways, but at the third, Michael spotted two men in what appeared to be official fire inspector uniforms standing guard at the entrance to the main evidence storage room. "Two subjects at the east entrance to evidence storage," Michael whispered into his radio, "armed with concealed weapons under their jackets." "Copy that," Thompson's voice responded in his earpiece. "Can you see inside the storage room?" Michael moved to the next observation port, which offered a partial view into the evidence room itself. Inside, he could see two more men methodically going through file cabinets and evidence boxes, clearly searching for specific items rather than randomly destroying evidence. "Two more inside," Michael reported. "They appear to be looking for something specific. Targeted search, not general destruction." "Deal, the Harrington financial fraud evidence," Mitchell's voice confirmed over the radio. "Those files contain witness statements and financial records that took months to compile. If they disappear, we lose our whole case." Michael continued his surveillance, noting details about the intruders, their methodical approach, their professional demeanor, the way they communicated with hand signals rather than speech. These weren't common criminals. They were trained professionals executing a carefully planned operation. "There's something else," Michael added after a moment. "They're wearing earpieces, probably communicating with someone outside the building." "Possible lookout or coordinator," Thompson suggested. "We need to identify how many total hostiles are involved before we move in." As Michael observed, one of the men inside the evidence room pulled out a specific file box labeled Harrington Financial Records and placed it on a central table. The other man began photographing the contents with a specialized camera. "They're documenting the evidence before removing it," Michael reported. "This isn't just about destroying the case. They want the information." Rex, who had been silently alert beside Michael, suddenly stiffened, his ears perking forward. Michael instantly recognized the change in his partner's demeanor. Rex had detected something. "What is it, boy?" Michael whispered. Rex turned his attention toward the far end of the service corridor, his posture indicating he'd sensed something or someone in that direction. Michael signaled for Rex to hold position while he reported. "Possible additional subject in the service corridor," he whispered into the radio. Rex has alerted to something at the north end. We're going to investigate. Negative, Detective, Mitchell responded immediately. Maintain your position. Tactical is assembling for entry in 3 minutes. But Rex's behavior became more insistent, his training telling him to alert his handler to a potential threat or discovery. Michael knew from years of partnership that ignoring Rex's instincts was never the right choice. Something's not right, Michael insisted. Rex doesn't react this way unless it's important. I need to check it out. Before Mitchell could object further, Michael signaled Rex to advance cautiously toward whatever had caught his attention. The shepherd moved silently ahead, with Michael following close behind, weapon at the ready. At the end of the service corridor, they discovered what had triggered Rex's alert. A fifth man, dressed not in a fire inspector's uniform but in the clothes of a janitorial worker, was setting up what appeared to be an explosive device near the main electrical panel for the building. Fifth subject located, Michael whispered urgently into his radio. North service corridor by the main electrical hub. He's placing what looks like an explosive device, possibly intended to cut power to the entire building or create a diversion. An explosion would trigger emergency protocols, Thompson replied immediately. All exits would unlock automatically for evacuation. They're creating an escape route. We can't wait for tactical, Michael decided. If that device detonates, they'll have clear access to remove all the evidence during the evacuation chaos. Mitchell's voice came through with clear authority. Anderson, do not engage. That's an order. Tactical is... The rest of her instruction was cut off as the man spotted Michael and Rex at the other end of the corridor. With surprising speed, he drew a weapon and fired toward them. Michael pulled back just in time, the bullet embedding itself in the wall beside him. Contact, Michael reported, the situation now evolving from reconnaissance to active threat. Subject is armed and has fired. We've lost the element of surprise. The gunshot had alerted the other intruders. Through the observation port, Michael could see the 2 men in the evidence room quickly gathering the materials they'd selected, while the guards at the door drew their weapons and began moving toward the source of the disturbance. All units move in now, Mitchell ordered through the radio. Tactical, use all available entry points. Anderson, secure your position and wait for backup. But Michael knew they couldn't wait. The man with the explosive device was still working to activate it, even as he kept his weapon trained on their position. If he succeeded, the entire operation could be compromised. Rex, Michael said quietly, using the specific command tone that indicated an imminent tracking and apprehension order. The shepherd immediately shifted into position, muscles tensed. And ready. Take him! With a speed that belied his 10 years of age, Rex burst from their cover position and charged down the corridor toward the armed man. The intruder fired again, but Rex's rapid zigzag approach, a technique Michael had spent months training him to perfect, made him a nearly impossible target in the confined space. Before the man could fire a third time, Rex launched himself forward in a controlled attack, locking onto the man's arm and taking him down with practiced precision. The weapon clattered to the floor as the shepherd maintained his hold, neutralizing the threat without causing unnecessary harm, exactly as he'd been trained to do. Michael rushed forward, securing the weapon and quickly subduing the intruder. Device secured, he reported. 1 subject in custody. Rex performed the takedown perfectly. Throughout the building, the sounds of the tactical team making entry echoed as they simultaneously breached multiple access points to the 2nd floor. The coordinated operation quickly overwhelmed the remaining intruders, who found themselves surrounded and outmaneuvered. Within minutes, all 5 men were in custody. The evidence was secured, and the explosive device had been safely disabled by the bomb squad. As the situation stabilized, officers gathered in the main area of the 2nd floor, processing the scene and securing the suspects for transport. Captain Mitchell approached Michael and Rex, her expression a complex mixture. of relief, respect, and lingering tension from their earlier confrontation. Your partner's timing was impeccable, Dershi acknowledged, watching as Rex sat calmly beside Michael, showing no signs of fatigue despite his eventful 24 hours. If he hadn't alerted you to that fifth suspect, we would have had a very different outcome, Michael finished. That's why experience matters, Captain. That's why partnerships like ours can't be replaced simply because a dog reaches a certain age or fails to meet some arbitrary physical benchmark. Mitchell was quiet for a moment, her professional mask slipping just enough to reveal genuine consideration. I made a mistake, she finally said, the admission clearly difficult for her, not just about Rex, but about the entire K9 program approach. Michael waited, sensing there was more to come. Lieutenant Martinez has presented me with the documentation regarding Northeast Academy's contracts, she continued. I wasn't aware of the extent of my husband's arrangements with my brother-in-law. The conflict of interest was more significant than I realized. You didn't know? Michael asked, surprised by this revelation. I knew James was expanding his business, and I supported the modern training methods Northeast was developing, Mitchell explained. But I didn't know proper procurement procedures were being circumvented or that political influence was being used to secure contracts. She sighed, the weight of the situation evident in her posture. That doesn't excuse my decisions regarding experienced K9 officers like Rex, but it does explain some of my misplaced priorities. Before Michael could respond, Lieutenant Thompson approached with news. We've identified the intruders, he reported. They're professional fixers with connections to several of the defendants in the Harrington case. This was a desperate attempt to destroy evidence before the trial next month. And we stopped them because of a dog who was supposedly too old to serve, Michael pointed out, unable to resist making the point. Mitchell nodded, acknowledging the truth in his words. Rex's reinstatement will be processed immediately, she declared, and I'll be initiating a full review of all K9 retirement decisions made during my tenure. Experience clearly counts for more than I gave it credit for. And Northeast Academy's contracts, Michael pressed, will be suspended pending a complete investigation, Mitchell confirmed. My personal connection to the business creates an untenable conflict of interest that I should have recognized from the beginning. The admission represented a significant personal and professional concession from the captain, one that Michael hadn't expected. It seemed Rex's dramatic return and crucial role in thwarting the evidence theft had forced a genuine re-evaluation of her approach. As the day progressed into evening, the precinct gradually returned to normal operations. The intruders were processed and charged. The evidence was resecured with additional protections, and reports were filed documenting the events. Through it all, Rex remained at Michael's side, showing no signs of wanting to be anywhere else. Later, as Michael completed his official statement about the incident, Officer Rodriguez stopped by his desk. So, is it official? She asked, nodding toward Rex, who was comfortably settled in his old spot beside Michael's chair. Is he really back for good? Mitchell signed the reinstatement herself, Michael confirmed with a smile. Apparently, saving a major case from being compromised earns you a reprieve from mandatory retirement. It wasn't just that, Rodriguez observed thoughtfully. It was watching him in action, seeing the difference between trained skill and natural talent combined with years of experience. Ace might be faster on the obstacle course, but he wouldn't have sensed that fifth guy hiding in the service corridor. Adudum. Some things can't be measured in physical benchmarks, Michael agreed, reaching down to scratch Rex behind the ears. The shepherd leaned into the touch, his eyes half closing in contentment. Some partnerships transcend the usual metrics. As they prepared to leave for the day, Captain Mitchell stopped them at the exit. She had changed from her formal uniform into civilian clothes, the shift making her appear somehow more approachable. "Detective Anderson," she began, then paused, correcting herself. "Michael, I owe you and Rex an apology. A formal one will be in writing tomorrow, but I wanted to say it personally as well." "We were just doing our job," Michael replied, finding it easier to be generous in victory. "No, you were fighting for something important, the value of experience and partnership," Mitchell countered. "And in the process, you exposed a significant ethical breach that I should have identified myself." She looked down at Rex. "Sometimes it takes an extraordinary demonstration to recognize what should have been obvious all along." Michael nodded, accepting the olive branch for what it was. "What happens now, with Northeast Academy and the other retired K9s?" "All recently retired dogs are being re-evaluated for potential reinstatement," Mitchell explained. "And I've already submitted my brother-in-law's contract authorizations to the Department Oversight Committee for review. My husband is cooperating fully. He claims he was unaware of how the contracts were being secured." "And you?" Michael asked. "Will there be consequences?" Mitchell's smile was tinged with resignation. "Almost certainly. At minimum, I'll be recused from all K9 unit decisions going forward. At worst, well, accountability matters. Whatever happens, I'll accept it." As Mitchell walked away, Michael felt the weight of the past week finally beginning to lift. He looked down at Rex, who gazed back with the same unwavering trust and partnership that had defined their relationship for years. "Let's go home, partner," Michael said, leading the way to his vehicle. "I think your bed has been empty long enough." In the weeks that followed, the Boston Police Department underwent significant changes. An external review of all procurement processes was initiated, leading to greater transparency and oversight. The K9 unit was restructured with an emphasis on experience and proven partnerships rather than purely physical metrics. Captain Mitchell was reassigned to administrative duties pending the completion of the ethics investigation, with Lieutenant Martinez temporarily taking over command. As for Michael and Rex, they returned to active duty with a newfound appreciation from their colleagues. The story of Rex's escape from the retirement facility and his crucial role in thwarting the evidence theft became something of a legend within the department, a testament to the bonds formed through years of partnership and trust. 1 month after the incident, as Michael and Rex completed their patrol shift, they stopped by a small park near the precinct, a favorite spot for Rex to relax after work, as the shepherd enjoyed a moment of freedom, running circles in. The autumn leaves. Officer Cooper approached with Ace. "Detective Anderson," Cooper greeted him. "Mind if we join you?" "Not at all," Michael replied, genuinely welcoming the young officer. Any resentment he'd felt toward Cooper for reporting to Mitchell had faded once he understood the officer had simply been following what he believed were proper protocols. "Ace is progressing well," Cooper said, watching as the younger dog approached Rex with appropriate deference. "But I've been hoping to get some advice from you, if you're willing. Some of the training techniques from Northeast don't seem to be building the kind of connection you have with Rex." Michael watched as the two dogs circled each other, the younger one clearly looking to the veteran for cues on appropriate behavior. It was a perfect metaphor for what Cooper was asking. "Training techniques are important," Michael acknowledged, "but the real secret isn't in the training manual. It's in the partnership, the trust and understanding that develops over time. That's something no accelerated program can provide." Cooper nodded thoughtfully. "That's what I was beginning to realize. Would you be willing to mentor us? Not to replace our formal training, but to supplement it with your experience?" The request represented exactly the kind of change Mitchell had begun implementing, a recognition that experience had value that couldn't be replaced by newer, supposedly more efficient methods. "I'd be happy to," Michael agreed, "and I think Rex would enjoy it too." As if understanding his name in the conversation, Rex trotted back to Michael's side, his mission in the park complete. Despite his adventure a month earlier and his age, he showed no signs of slowing down or diminished enthusiasm for his work. If anything, the experience had reinforced his sense of purpose and reaffirmed the bond with his partner. "You know," Cooper observed, watching the easy synchronicity between Michael and Rex, "they say dogs can't understand complex human emotions or concepts like loyalty and duty. But watching Rex escape a secure facility, find his way across the city, and arrive exactly when he was needed most, makes me wonder if they understand more than we give them credit for." Michael smiled, watching as Rex settled comfortably at his feet, alert but relaxed, exactly where he belonged. "I stopped questioning what Rex understands a long time ago. All I know is that some bonds can't be broken by regulations or retirement papers or even distance." He reached down to scratch behind Rex's ears. "Some partnerships are simply meant to be." As the autumn sun began to set over Boston, casting long shadows across the park, Michael reflected on how close he had come to losing his partner forever. If Rex hadn't taken matters into his own paws, if the intruders had succeeded in their plan, if Captain Mitchell hadn't been forced to confront the consequences of her decisions, everything might have turned out differently. Instead, they had weathered the storm together and emerged stronger for it. The road ahead would have its challenges. Rex wouldn't get any younger after all, and eventually retirement would come on its own terms. But when that day arrived, Michael knew it would be a mutual decision, made with respect for their partnership and Rex's dignity. 2 weeks later, as winter's first snow dusted the city, Michael and Rex received a special commendation from the Boston Police Department for their actions during the evidence room incident. The ceremony was attended by the entire precinct, including a humbled Captain Mitchell, who had chosen to accept a demotion rather than resign during the ethics investigation. "Some partnerships transcend standard protocols," she acknowledged during her speech, "and some officers, regardless of whether they have 2 legs or 4, remind us why experience can never be fully replaced by innovation." After the ceremony, as Michael removed Rex's formal K9 dress collar in the privacy of their office, he found a small note that Rodriguez had slipped into his jacket pocket during the congratulatory handshakes. It read simply, "Heroes come in all forms. Some wear badges, some wear collars. The best ones wear both." Michael tucked the note into Rex's personnel file, a permanent reminder that some bonds are truly unbreakable, no matter what challenges may come their way. And as they headed home through the gently falling snow, Rex trotting confidently beside him, Michael knew with absolute certainty that wherever their journey led next, they would face it as they had faced everything else in their remarkable partnership. Together, step by step, side by side. Dear listeners, we hope that Michael and Rex's journey touched your hearts as much as it did ours. Their story reminds us that loyalty, partnership, and trust can overcome even the most challenging obstacles. Sometimes the most extraordinary. Heroes are the ones walking right beside us every day. If you enjoyed this emotional tale of an unbreakable bond between a detective and his K9 partner, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories about remarkable partnerships that defy all odds. Find it by clicking the link to your left. Did this story of loyalty and second chances move you? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Every day we bring you unique stories that explore the complexity and beauty of the relationships that define our lives. Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to know which moment in Michael and Rex's journey resonated with you the most. And stay tuned for our next heartwarming tale, coming soon.